The old church was nearly empty. Sunday evening service always had fewer people. 6-year-old Juniper knelt in the front pew, her small hands pressed together tightly. "God," she whispered softly, "I just want a dad for Mommy." Her voice trembled. Slightly. "She cries when she thinks I'm sleeping." A pause. A deep breath. "She works so hard. Please, please send someone who will love us both." Behind her, 3 rows back, a man sat alone. His expensive suit looked completely out of place in the humble church. Thaddeus Whitmore had wandered in during his evening walk, feeling restless and empty. He had not planned to stay. But something about the little girl's prayer, something about her innocent plea, held him there like invisible chains. Thaddeus was 62 years old. He had built a technology empire from absolutely nothing. His company was worth billions. But he sat in this small church in Cedar Falls, Iowa, feeling emptier than he had ever felt in his entire life. The sanctuary was quiet, except for the soft creak of old wooden pews. Dust motes danced in the colored light from stained glass windows. The air smelled of old books and furniture polish. And in this sacred silence, a little girl's prayer echoed like a bell. The little girl's mother appeared from a side door. She moved quietly, gracefully. She wore a simple blue dress and carried a worn leather purse. Her name was Delphine, though Thaddeus did not know that yet. She worked as a cleaning lady at the church. Every Sunday evening, she brought Juniper with her while she prepared for the week ahead. "Come on, baby," Delphine said softly, her voice warm and gentle. "Time to go home." Juniper stood slowly and took her mother's hand. As they walked past Thaddeus, the little girl looked up at him with curious, bright eyes. She had her mother's warm smile, her mother's kind heart. "Are you new here?" Juniper asked innocently. Thaddeus nodded slowly. He found it suddenly hard to speak. The child's innocence, her simple faith, had shaken something deep inside him. Something he had buried long ago. "I'm Juniper," she said proudly. "This is my mom, Delphine." I'm Thaddeus," he managed to say, his voice rougher than usual. Delphine looked embarrassed, almost apologetic. "I'm sorry. She talks to everyone." "Come on, Juniper." But Juniper was not finished. Her young face was serious now. "Do you have a family, Mr. Thaddeus?" The question hit him like a physical blow. Sharp. Unexpected. He had been married once. Long ago. His wife Elena had died in a car accident 15 years ago. They had never had children. After Elena's death, he had thrown himself into his work with desperate intensity. He had built an empire, but he had built it alone. "No," he said quietly, almost whispering. "I don't have a family." "That's really sad," Juniper said with the honest, pure sympathy of a child. "Everyone should have a family." Delphine tugged gently on her daughter's hand. "We need to go, sweetheart. Say goodbye to Mr. Thaddeus." "Goodbye, Mr. Thaddeus," Juniper said brightly. "I hope you find a family, too." They left through the side door, their footsteps echoing softly. Thaddeus sat alone in the empty church for a very long time after they were gone. The little girl's prayer echoed in his mind. Over and over. The simplicity of her wish. The purity of her love for her mother. He had not prayed in years. Not since Elena died. But sitting there in the gathering darkness, surrounded by silence and shadows, he found himself whispering his own prayer. Not for himself, but for the little girl and her mother. For their happiness. For their security. For their dreams to come true. The next Sunday, Thaddeus returned to the church. He told himself he was just exploring the town. Cedar Falls was nothing like the busy cities where he usually lived. It was small and quiet and peaceful. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone else. Where people still believed in miracles, but deep down, he knew the real reason he had come back. He wanted to see the little girl again. He wanted to hear her pray. He wanted to feel that spark of hope that her words had ignited in his cold, empty heart. Juniper was there again, kneeling in the front pew. This time, her prayer was different. More urgent. More worried. God, she whispered, her voice shaking slightly, Mommy's car is making funny noises. She's really worried about money again. A pause. A sniffle. I heard her talking to Mrs. Cordelia on the phone. She doesn't know what to do. She sounded scared. Please, please help us. Thaddeus felt his heart clench painfully. After the service, he approached the pastor with determined steps. Reverend Beaumont was a kind man in his 50s. He had been serving this congregation for 20 years. His face was lined with wisdom and compassion. Pastor, Thaddeus said carefully, I couldn't help but notice the little girl who prays in the front pew. Juniper. Is her family? Are they in need of help? Reverend Beaumont studied Thaddeus carefully with sharp, knowing eyes. Why do you ask? I'd like to help them. Anonymously, if possible. The pastor's expression softened gradually. Delphine works very hard. She cleans offices at night and houses during the day. She's raising Juniper completely alone. The father left when Juniper was only 2 years old. His voice grew sad. They struggle, but they have dignity. Pride. If you want to help, it would need to be done very carefully. Thaddeus nodded eagerly. I understand completely. What if her car were to be repaired, and the mechanic said it was covered by a warranty she didn't know about? That could work, the pastor said slowly, thoughtfully. But Mr. Whitmore? Thaddeus Whitmore. The pastor's eyes widened in surprise. Even in small-town Iowa, people knew that name. Mr. Whitmore, may I ask why you're so interested in helping this particular family? Thaddeus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft and wondering. Because a little girl prayed for her mother to find love. And when I heard that prayer, I realized that I had been praying for the same thing, without even knowing it. I had been praying for a family to love. Over the following weeks, small miracles began happening in Delphine's life. Her car was repaired completely for free. An anonymous donor paid for all of Juniper's school supplies. The grocery store claimed she had won a contest she never entered. Providing a full month's worth of food, Delphine was suspicious but deeply grateful. She mentioned it to Reverend Beaumont, who simply smiled mysteriously and said that God worked in the most wonderful ways. Thaddeus began attending the church. Regularly, faithfully. He would sit in the back, listening intently to Juniper's prayers. He learned about their lives through her whispered conversations with God. He learned that Delphine loved to read but could not afford new books. He learned that Juniper desperately wanted to take piano lessons but they simply could not afford them. Slowly, carefully, lovingly, he began to address these needs. The church suddenly acquired a generous donation of books for their library. A piano teacher mysteriously offered free lessons to children in need. Each act of kindness was anonymous, completely untraceable, but Thaddeus wanted more than to just solve their problems from a distance. He wanted to be part of their lives. He wanted to be the answer to Juniper's prayer in a way that felt real and meaningful and lasting. One evening, as he was leaving the church, he encountered Delphine in the parking lot. She was struggling with heavy bags of cleaning supplies, trying to get them into her car while keeping a watchful eye on Juniper. Let me help you, he said, approaching carefully and respectfully. She looked up, surprised but grateful. Oh, Mr. Whitmore. Thank you so much. He loaded the supplies into her car with careful hands. You remember my name. Juniper talks about you, she said with a gentle smile. She says you sit alone in church and look sad. She's been praying for you too. The words hit him harder than he expected. Much harder. She's been praying for me? Every Sunday. She prays for everyone she meets. She has such a big heart. Thaddeus looked at Juniper, who was drawing pictures in the dirt with a stick. She's a very special little girl. She is, Delphine agreed softly. She's everything to me. My whole world. Her father, Thaddeus said carefully, hesitantly, is. He's not in the picture, Delphine said firmly, with a hint of old pain. He left when things got hard. When he realized that being a father was much more than he wanted to handle. There was pain in her voice, but also incredible strength. Thaddeus admired her resilience deeply. Her determination to provide for her daughter despite all the challenges. "I'm so sorry," he said sincerely. "Don't be. We're much better off without him. Juniper deserves someone who will love her unconditionally. Someone who will be there for her always." "Yes," Thaddeus said quietly, thoughtfully. "She absolutely does." That night, Thaddeus lay awake thinking about Delphine's words. About unconditional love. About being there always. He had spent 15 long years building walls around his heart, protecting himself from the crushing pain of loss. But this little girl and her mother were breaking down those walls without even trying. The next Sunday, something unexpected happened. Juniper's prayer was different again. More thoughtful. More hopeful. "God," she whispered with growing excitement. "I think you might be answering my prayer. Mr. Thaddeus is really nice. He's lonely like we were lonely. Maybe he could be part of our family. Maybe we could all take care of each other." Thaddeus felt tears burning in his eyes. The child's simple wisdom, her amazing ability to see the heart of things, left him breathless. She had seen his loneliness. She had seen his deep need for family, just as he had seen hers. After the service, he approached Delphine with nervous determination. "Would you and Juniper like to have dinner with me sometime? Nothing fancy. Just a chance to talk." She looked surprised, uncertain. "Mr. Whitmore, I don't think, please," he said earnestly. "I know we barely know each other. But I'd really like to get to know you both better. As friends." Delphine studied his face carefully. She saw something there, something genuine and kind, that made her reconsider. "Okay. But somewhere child-friendly. Juniper gets restless in fancy restaurants." "How about pizza?" he suggested hopefully. "There's a place downtown with games and music. I heard it's very popular with families." She smiled warmly. Juniper would absolutely love that. The dinner was a complete revelation. For all three of them. Thaddeus had forgotten how to talk to people about everyday things. About favorite colors and childhood dreams. About the small joys and struggles of daily life. Juniper chattered excitedly about school, about her friends, about the books she loved. She asked Thaddeus about his work, but in the simple, direct way children do. She wanted to know if he liked it, if it made him happy. "Sometimes," he said honestly, thoughtfully. "But lately, I've been thinking about what really makes me happy. And I think it's spending time with people I care about." "Like us?" Juniper said with a bright, hopeful grin. "Yes," he said warmly. "Exactly like you." Delphine watched the interaction with growing amazement. She had never seen Juniper respond to a man the way she was responding to Thaddeus. With complete trust and natural affection. And she had never seen a man be so gentle and patient with a child, but there was something else. Something that nagged at her. The anonymous help they had been receiving. The perfect timing of Thaddeus's appearance in their lives. The way he seemed to know exactly what they needed. After dinner, as they walked slowly to their cars, she decided to ask the question that had been bothering her. "Thaddeus, can I ask you something important?" "Of course. Anything." "The help we've been receiving. The car repair, the groceries, the piano lessons. That's you, isn't it?" He stopped walking abruptly. "What makes you think that?" "A feeling. And the fact that you're the only person I know who would have the resources to do all of that anonymously." He looked at her for a long, honest moment. "Would you be upset if it was me?" "I don't know," she said honestly, her voice soft. "Part of me would be grateful. Part of me would be embarrassed. And part of me would wonder why." "Why what?" "Why US? Why would a successful man like you care about a cleaning lady and her daughter?" Thaddeus looked down at Juniper, who was skipping ahead of them, humming happily to herself. "Because that little girl prayed for her mother. To find love. And when I heard that prayer, I realized that I had been praying for the same thing, without even knowing it. I had been praying for a family to love." Delphine's eyes filled with tears. Thaddeus, I know it sounds crazy, he said quickly, almost desperately. I know we barely know each other. But I felt more alive in the past few weeks than I have in 15 years. Being around you and Juniper, it's like waking up from a very long sleep. It's not crazy, she said softly, wonderingly. It's beautiful. They stood there in the parking lot, the evening air cool and peaceful around them. Juniper ran back to them, her face flushed with excitement and joy. Can we do this again, she asked eagerly. Can Mr. Thaddeus have dinner with us again? Would you like that? Delphine asked gently. Yes, Juniper said without hesitation. I prayed for a dad for you, Mommy. And I think God sent Mr. Thaddeus. Thaddeus knelt down slowly to Juniper's level. Juniper, being a dad is a very big responsibility. It means being there for someone always. It means loving them even when things are hard. Are you absolutely sure? That's what you want? I'm sure, she said confidently, without any doubt. You're kind and you make Mommy smile. And you listen to my prayers. I think you'd be a really good dad. He looked up at Delphine with hopeful eyes. What do you think? I think we should take it slow, she said carefully. Get to know each other better. But I also think that sometimes, when you know something is right, you know it in your heart. And do you, he asked softly, know it in your heart? I'm starting to, she said with a gentle smile. Over the following months, Thaddeus became a regular, cherished part of their lives. He would pick up Juniper from school when Delphine was working. He would help patiently with homework and read bedtime stories with different voices for each character. He would fix things around their small apartment and take them on wonderful weekend adventures. But it was the quiet moments that meant the most. The peaceful evenings when they would sit together after Juniper was asleep, talking softly about their dreams and fears. The gentle mornings when they would have breakfast together before starting their day. The way Juniper would climb trustingly into his lap when she was tired, the way she would call him Dad, without thinking about it. Delphine watched in wonder as Thaddeus transformed from a lonely, guarded man into someone who laughed easily and loved deeply. She saw how he treasured every single moment with Juniper, how he approached fatherhood with the same dedication he had once brought to his business, and she felt her own heart opening in ways she had thought impossible. She had been hurt before, abandoned when she needed support the most. But Thaddeus showed her every day that not all men were like Juniper's biological father. That some men understood the sacred trust of loving a child and a woman. The proposal came on a Sunday evening, in the same church where it had all begun. Thaddeus had asked Delphine to stay after the service. Juniper was playing quietly in the front pew, the same pew where she had first prayed for a father. Delphine, Thaddeus said, taking her hands gently. A year ago, I was a man who had everything the world says matters. Money, success, power. But I was completely empty inside. I was going through the motions of living without really being alive. And then, he continued, his voice growing warm and wondering, I heard a little girl pray for her mother to find love. And I realized that I had been praying for the same thing, without even knowing it. I had been praying for a family to love and be loved by. He knelt down slowly, pulling a simple but beautiful ring from his pocket. I'm not asking you to marry me because I can provide for you financially. I'm asking you to marry me because I can't imagine my life without you and Juniper in it. Because you've given me a purpose beyond making money. You've given me a reason to be the best man I can be. Delphine's eyes were completely full of tears. Thaddeus, I know I'm older than you, he said earnestly. I know I come from a different world. But I promise you, I will love you and Juniper with everything I have. I will be there for you both, in good times and bad. I will be the father Juniper deserves and the husband you deserve. Before Delphine could answer, Juniper appeared beside them like a little angel. She had been listening, and her face was absolutely bright with joy. Say yes, Mommy, she said excitedly. Say yes so we can all be a real family. Delphine looked at her daughter, then at Thaddeus with his hopeful, loving eyes. Yes, she said through her tears. Yes, I'll marry you. Thaddeus slipped the ring onto her finger with trembling hands, then pulled both of them into his arms. They stood there in the church, holding each other tightly, as the evening light streamed through the stained glass windows like a blessing. Thank you, Thaddeus whispered to Juniper. Thank you for praying for your mother. Thank you for including me in your prayers. I told you God would answer, Juniper said with the absolute confidence of a child who had seen her prayers come true. He always does. You just have to listen. The wedding was small and absolutely beautiful. The same church where they had met. The same pastor who had watched their love story unfold. The same pew where a little girl had prayed for her mother to find love, but the most moving part of the ceremony was when Thaddeus formally adopted Juniper. When he promised to love her and protect her and be her father in every way that mattered. I never thought I'd have a daughter, he said as he signed the papers with careful hands. But you've made me the luckiest man in the world. I never thought I'd have a dad, Juniper said, hugging him tightly. But now I do. And he's the best dad ever. As they walked out of the church together, Thaddeus thought about the prayer that had changed everything. About the little girl who had asked God for a father for her mother. About the man who had been lost and alone and had found his way home through the faith of a child. 5 years later, they were a family of 4. Juniper now had a little brother, William, who looked exactly like his father but had his mother's gentle spirit. They lived in a beautiful house on the outskirts of Cedar Falls, but they still attended faithfully the same small church where it all began, and every Sunday, Juniper would pray in the same front pew. But now her prayers were different. More mature. More thoughtful. Now she prayed for other lonely people to find families. For other children to find fathers. For other hearts to be healed by love. Thaddeus would sit behind her, with Delphine beside him and baby William in his arms, and he would remember with deep gratitude the evening when he had first heard her pray. When a little girl's simple faith had changed the course of his life forever. He had thought he was successful before. He had thought he had everything a man could want. But he had been completely wrong. Success wasn't about money or power or recognition. Success was about love. It was about being part of something bigger than yourself. It was about being chosen by a little girl who prayed for her mother to find love, and discovering that in helping answer her prayer, his own deepest prayer had been answered too. The prayer that changed everything had been whispered by a 6-year-old girl in a quiet church. But it had been heard by a man who needed to remember what it meant to have faith, to have hope, to have love, and in the end, that prayer had given all of them exactly what they needed. Not just a father for Juniper, or a husband for Delphine, or a family for Thaddeus, but a reminder that the most important things in life can't be bought or earned or achieved. They can only be given and received with an open heart. The prayer that changed everything had shown them that sometimes, the answer to our deepest longing is sitting right behind us, waiting patiently for us to turn around and see it. Waiting for us to have enough faith to believe that love is possible, even when we least expect it. And sometimes, the most powerful prayers are the ones whispered by children who still believe in miracles. Who still believe that God hears every word. And that love always finds a way.